Cartoon Network has been off its game for years now, but will two boys put them back on the map? Here's your leaked first look at Victor and Valentino. Victor and Valentino is one of only two things Cartoon Network has going for it in 2019, the other thing being the long-delayed Infinity Train set to arrive later this year. This show will be a big decider in the fate of the channel's fortunes this year in the eyes of its audience and begin to set the tone for the rest of this content cycle. After being overrun with outright atrocity over the past 4 to 5 years, is CN ready to get back in the game and once again become a force to be reckoned with? It's been about a decade since Cartoon Network had big, splashy, genre-defining shows that garnered big attention. The likes of Adventure Time and Regular Show set the bar high for the channel's output this decade. But, as we would later find out, the network has faced unending levels of rot and criticism as they spent the second half of the 10s trying out bad shows, bad scheduling, and bad treatment of their series. So as the stage begins to be set for the 2020s, Cartoon Network is in a very special and very particular position to set the standard again for the new decade, and their first shot in doing so is in Victor and Valentino, where the two Tell half-brothers spend the summer in the quaint Mexican-infused town of Monte Macabre. They're gonna screw up an entire generation's pronunciation of macabre, aren't they? Where myths, legends, and certainly mysteries come to life. Now, relatives spending the summer with grand relatives in quaint, unassuming, and mysterious towns? I'm sure the similarities to one of the biggest non-CN series of the 10s are not lost on Cartoon Network. I'm sure at some point some kids TV YouTuber will make that case. I am not wasting my time on that today though, because audiences are fleeting. In theory, a show like this should be a slam dunk for Cartoon Network. It has boundless potential for creative complexity, it's an original series so no one has any expectations about it going in, and it's going to appeal to a lot of fans who are looking for something a little deeper than the typical comedy that dominates kids TV these days. However, in reality, given how the channel's been the past 5 years, no one believes that Cartoon Network can pull it off, myself very much included. The show doesn't premiere until March 30th, but the first episode has already been leaked at the time of making this episode by way of that always nuisance-inducing Cartoon Network app. So that's what this review is based on, and there will be spoilers, so skip to the timestamp on screen and I'll go back to speaking about the show more broadly. So is Victor and Valentino worth any semblance of that long-lost thing I believe they call hype? Let's find out together, shall we? The show's intro sets the series' tone off well and basically sends you through a 20-second blast through everything that's going to matter. It seems pretty boring upon a first watch, though as we see very little of substance, the music and motion stringing you along rather than setting up the story. It doesn't have to be as overt as, say, Henry Danger's intro or anything, but it'd be nice to get more out of it. Into the first episode we go proper now, we meet our title characters, though they're sitting in reverse order. There's a pessimism that radiates off Victor in this opening scene that I'm not sure is meant to be present, and the only way I know this is how it reflects off of Valentino's more straight-laced demeanor. It descends back into general mischievousness eventually, but he still comes off as shifty, as is proven in canon, faster than I can make that statement. Victor's asking for trouble, like literally asking for trouble, and he's going to drag Valentino through it or so help him. It's not the best way to go through life, but I guess it makes for some okay TV. Enabling Victor's worst tendencies, as our previously introduced mischievous coyote friend does for much of the second quarter of the episode, is a decent watch for exactly the amount of time it runs for, but he eventually learns his lesson and joins Valentino in getting things back in order, which takes a bit, given we're only midway through the episode, but eventually happens just in time for no one important to notice. It's sort of the equivalent of the I wish everything was back to normal wish on the Fairly Odd Parents, but with a little more work. Alright, so let's wrap it up. The episode itself goes through the motions and does nothing else. I get that setting up a show in 11 minutes is hard, but it should be something that Cartoon Network can do well enough that keeps viewers interested in coming back. However, this first episode feels particularly formulaic, and I can see the show's potential format from here. Unnecessary B-plot to open the episode, explanation of the MacGuffin of the week, alebrije of the week. Said MacGuffin gets some use, it's fun until it isn't, and then it's time to restore the status quo. This plot formula could describe, to some extent or another, any number of other kids shows, but the thing about those other shows is, they can do it better. Formulaicness isn't inherently a bad thing, and I'm not trying to say it is, but it's how you work with that formula, play with that formula even, that makes the show. One of the biggest shows in this century managed to run through 222 episodes operating on largely the same basic formula. That could have failed fast, but they played with the concept and mixed it up enough to keep every episode interesting. Victor and Valentino's first episode does a little with its formula, and overall just plays everything straight. As it stands right now, that's going to get very boring very fast, unless the next 3 episodes in this block of premieres play with the formula in a way that either subverts my expectations, or adds enough bells and whistles to hide the bones of the formula. The problem of an overt formula quickly tiring itself out is the same problem that plagues fellow CN show Craig of the Creek, so at least it has company. Victor and Valentino as characters are honestly kind of bland. To be fair, we don't see much about them this episode, but they seem to be one-trick ponies from the get-go. Victor is mischievous and trouble-seeking, and Valentino, as his foil, is responsible as perfectly fine sitting right here, thanks. While we don't get to see actually too much into their characters in this first episode, if that weak position is where this show is starting from, it only makes it that much harder to develop them into characters. I found the side character gets about 10 seconds of total screen time more interesting to watch than Victor and Valentino themselves. That's not good. They need to fix that in future episodes. For those who are expecting big things out of Victor and Valentino, I'd say prepare to be disappointed. This is not the cartoon arc savior you're looking for. There's no mystery, there's no intrigue, and there are dubious amounts of adventure. It's a middling, mediocre show at best, but that's basically where CN is as a channel these days. They spent the last cycle being abjectly bad, so now they're correcting it this cycle by being boring. Ideally, that trend would mean by next cycle, mid-next decade, they'd be making shows that would be considered as okay or even good, but that's still a few years out. Victor and Valentino offers you enough to make you want to watch the next episode, but absolutely nothing more. There's nothing overarching, nothing bigger at play. It's just a conceptually promising but dull execution cartoon that almost seems more manufactured than made. No offense to the creative team who worked hard on it, but this opening episode could be so much better than it is. But in contrast to, say, the new TMNT show, which at least puts the potential for far greater things out there, Victor and Valentino only aspires to get by and do nothing else. At its best, Victor and Valentino continues the trend of just okay kind of cartoons that Cartoon Network has been putting out since Crazy Creek, but just okay for a show that had so much riding on it, and that means so much for the channel's hopes in 2019 just doesn't cut it. I will follow this up after the premiere with my thoughts on more of the show's new episodes, so subscribe so you don't miss that. I'm Benzie Johnson Jr., and I'm enthusiastic about television, but apparently not about this show, and I'll see you next time.